You know the definition of numbers given by the mathematicians about the discovery of numbers. They give you the history of how man discovered numbers. First, for example, some numbers were discovered in ancient Babylonia, some in Crete, and some in ancient India. And after that, we came to understand that there are numbers. And also, the decimal system has been discovered in some century, etc. But you observe two children coming to you. You give one child 2 chocolates, another child 10 chocolates. The first child immediately understands the inequality. You have not taught him that numbers exist. You have not taught him that the names of numbers. He does not know that addition and subtraction exist. But immediately the fellow understands that less number of chocolates are given to him. What does this prove? This proves that the young fellow knows numbers before you teach him. How does he know? What is the process of his feeling the existence of numbers? This is a straight example of symbolism which is not man-made. And if you find that you have 2 eyes and 2 ears, and you have fixed number of bones in your bony system, and that you have 32 teeth on your skull, all these things are prepared long before your brain was made in the mother's womb. So, as an esoteric student, you will immediately understand that numbers exist long before the origin of man. So, the opinion of the mathematics professor is thoroughly wrong. If you count the number of petals in a flower, they are always constant. So then you will understand this, the statement of Pythagoras, that numbers exist in space, and that numbers are among the properties of space. Then only we will be able to understand these 2 statements. Before that, we will think that Pythagoras was having his own superstitious ideas. This is one example of how the scriptures view the symbolism. Another example is the existence of a deva who governs the numbers in us. The scriptures describe that there is a deva who presides over numbers, under whom there are different devas working as the deva of each number. Each number is the power or potency of a different deva, and these devas of numbers are called the forefathers of our creation. For example, the patriarchs of the Old Testament. Then, if you study the Old Testament from this point of view, you will understand how the devas create in nature. In the Sanskrit scriptures, they are called Prajapatis, which are well explained in the books Isis Unveiled and the Secret Doctrine of Madame Blavatsky. And in the Old Testament, they are called patriarchs. For example, Abraham, Jacob, etc. They have their purpose in creation. And in the Sanskrit scriptures, there is one deva who presides over all these devas. He is called Kapila, who is described as a great professor of numbers in nature, and he helps constructing the human frame in the mother's womb, and under his direction the number of bones in our constitution is fixed, and the whole system is arranged on the cerebrospinal column and distributed, all the parts distributed according to numbers on either side of this column. For example, the 2 lobes of the brain as correspondences of the 2 halves of the day, that is the night and the day, which alternate, and Also the one point in the middle, which we call the pineal gland. So, 2 eyes and 2 nostrils, 1 tongue. So, it is in the design of 2 plus 1, 2 hands and 1 trunk, and 2 lungs and 1 heart. Like this, along the spinal column, it is arranged in the formula of 2 plus 1. The whole frame is arranged, and the numbers 1 to 9 applied in the construction of the frame, and this Deva, who is called Kapila, who presides over the function of the number Devas in us, after the completion of the construction of the physical body, with all the nerves and the blood vessels that are fixed in number, then when the whole construction is complete, he enters into the cerebrospinal system, and he exists in a place which he has constructed as his own home in the cerebrospinal system, and he exists there as long as the fellow exists in the body, working as the first teacher of numbers to the boy who is to be born. And with his help, the additions and the subtractions and the multiplications are being done by the fellow. So, if the scriptures use the word Kapila, and when they define him as the professor of numbers existing in nature, and that science they call the science of Sankhya system, then we can very easily understand the symbolism of the scripture. If we do not care to understand natural symbols different from man-made symbols, then we will understand that in the ancient days a great philosopher existed by name Kapila, who discovered a system of philosophy called Sankhya, and who was teaching his philosophy. And then we begin to discuss the date of this fellow. If you go through the history of Sanskrit literature, and many scholars differ about his date, and they discuss and write books. And if you are a real esoteric student, you will laugh at the ignorance of these great scholars of history, because Kapila is a symbol, a principle which exists in nature, and the story given about Kapila in the scriptures is a great allegory of natural phenomena. Similarly, if you take another symbol, another Deva who presides over shape consciousness, you will find allegories about this Deva also. For example, a human being gives birth to only a human body, and this requires an intelligence on the creative plane which prevents the human being giving birth to a dog or a pig. So there should be a Deva. There should be a Deva who is careful about this aspect, and he is presiding over the shape consciousness of the embryo. If every seed is producing its own tree, there must be an intelligence which is remembering the shape of the whole tree and giving rise to the germination of the same tree without any mistake. This is what is called the Deva of the shape consciousness. In the Indian scriptures, he is called Vishwakarman, who is commented upon by Blavatsky in the Secret Doctrine. And in the symbolism of the various esoteric schools, he is called the great architect of the universe. It is said that his name should be uttered only in the ritualistic temples in Freemasonry. A great secrecy is maintained about his existence, as a result of which the student has lost the real meaning of it. And no Freemason knows who the great architect is. And he is only conscious of one thing, that he should maintain the secrecy. And this secrecy is only hollow because he has forgotten the real significance. Except the pride of secrecy, this Freemason knows nothing about this. So, if we go into the esotericism of the aspect, you will find that the author of the scriptures was more simple and better in his explanation than the Freemason, because he never kept it secret and he never lost this truth in his secrecy. He conveyed the truth through the story of a deva called Vishwakarman. You will find the story and the allegory of this deva in the scripture. He is described as preparing the shapes of the various living beings on this earth. So this is another example of the symbolism of the scriptures. We will take a third example. We have three aspects working in nature, which are called Rajas, Tamas and Sattva. Dynamism, inertia and poise. These are called the three basic qualities working in nature. They work on the mental plane and produce the mind and go on functioning in the various levels of the mind, producing three types of mind to the living beings. They exist in the plane of force, producing three manifestations of energy, and they exist on the plane of matter, producing the three consistencies of matter. So, all the three lower planes of existence are governed by them, and on the fourth plane, only one of the three is functioning, that is poise. The other two are reabsorbed into himself. And in the fifth, sixth and seventh planes of consciousness, they are not functioning at all, because they are not required there, and their purpose is finished on the three lower planes. And as long as a human being exists in the first three planes of consciousness, he is conditioned by these three qualities, and when he is not regulated by his own habits, he has to live a life of a prisoner imprisoned by these three qualities. And when he begins to live a disciplined life, he is no more conditioned by these three qualities, but he is helped and supported by the devas of these three qualities, and he learns how to exist in the third quality, which is poise, by making his inequalities equal. And then these three devas begin to help him and work as his teachers, and then liberate him from the threefold activity of the universe. This the symbolic student uses in a peculiar way. He makes us understand the existence of a creator, a destroyer, and a preserver principles working in creation. And the presiding deity of Rajas or dynamism is symbolized by the creator called Brahma, who is having four faces, and the destroyer aspect is working in the form of a god form called Shiva, who has three eyes and also a trident in his hand, and the preserver in the form of Vishnu, who has four arms. This is one type of man-made symbolism which expresses the original symbolism which is not man-made. When studying such aspects in the scriptures, majority of the students are mistaken. Either they understand that these fellows exist in the form of persons in nature as personal gods, and some others are mistaken that these are only symbols used by the symbologist. Both are wrong. They are not personal gods existing on an objective or a personal layer. At the same time, they are not merely man-made symbols. They exist as eternal truths, working the equilibrium of creation every moment, and they are existing as truly as any one of us exists. So that if we know how to make an approach to one or the three of them, we will feel and realize their presence, communicate with them, derive benefit out of them as definitely as we derive benefit by making an approach to our own intelligence. The existence of these three fellows is as true as the existence of our intelligence. But at the same time, they do not exist objectively as personal gods, just as our intelligence does not exist somewhere else objectively. So they should be understood as symbols that exist in nature and not man-made. And the esoteric student of the ancient days has produced the three man-made symbols in such a way that they reveal the already existing symbols in nature and their functions and our approach towards them. So this is one example of the double symbolism, that is the symbolism of the esoteric student superimposed upon the symbolism that already exists in nature. So this is what is called the symbolism of Trimurti in Sanskrit. The word Trimurti means the three forms. It is the threefold functioning of creation. So dynamism is the cause of creation, inertia is the cause of destruction, and poise is the cause of preservation of this creation. This threefold activity exists in nature and manifests as the creation, and it manifests in every atom of the creation also. This forms one of the major symbols, and the four faces of the creator Brahma is another aspect of this symbolism, and the four arms of Vishnu is another aspect of the same symbolism. When we remember that this creation manifests through four stages of utterance, the fourth of which is the manifest universe. So we understand why the creator is described as four-faced in the symbolism. The whole creation is described as an uttered word of the creator, which exists in four stages of utterance. Just as these words we utter are uttered in four stages. If we say this is a chalk piece, it is one stage of utterance, which we can call the vocal language sentence, which indicates the fourth stage of utterance. Before I utter this is a chalk piece, I should utter it in my mind. Therefore, the sentence exists previously in my mind in the form of language mental sentence, which is the previous stage of utterance. Before that, the sentence exists in the form of a thought. It can be called a thought sentence, which exists in the second stage of utterance. Before that, it exists as our idea to utter the sentence. So the idea exists with us, and before that the idea has not come out into our mind, and we exist without the idea. So every sentence we utter exists in 4 stages. The vocal language sentence, before that the mental language sentence, before that the mental sentence without a language, before that as a proposal to utter the sentence, before which there was no proposal and there was only the utterer. For every sentence we utter, these 4 stages exist. Without these 4 stages, we cannot utter any sentence at all. This is because our utterance follows the same order as the utterance of this creation. Because we are part of this creation, we represent this creation. Our utterance represents the utterance of this creation. And this creation also is uttered in 4 stages. And the 4th stage is what we see around us. This objective creation, which includes our solar systems and galaxies, our planet Earth, and the objective universe around us. All these things put together form the 4th stage of utterance of the creation. And there are 3 more stages hidden in this same creation, because this creation is uttered by the Creator in 4 stages, just as we utter our sentence in 4 stages. Only in the 4th stage this creation comes into objectivity, whereas the 3 previous stages exist in subjectivity. So in all there are 4 stages of the utterance of the Creator. And before it was uttered, it existed with him as the proposal to create. Before the proposal came to his mind, it is only he existed and creation never existed. This is the meaning of the mantram which we find in the Gospel. First there was the Word was with God, the Word was God. This speaks of the first stage of utterance. And for this reason, the Creator is described as 4-faced. And the 4-faced Creator is symbolized by the square for many secret reasons. And the Preserver is described